Hello, everybody, and welcome to Actionstep's Legal Innovation Meetup. It's great that you're all here, and thank you for finding the time to join us tonight. It will hopefully be a fun, maybe thought-provoking evening, and hopefully a bit of networking in our breakout sessions later. If you haven't met me, my name is David Hepburn. I'm Actionstep's global president and run all aspects of our company around the world in the US, the UK, and here in Australia and New Zealand. You know, I know we have some customers with us, but if you don't know, we are one of the only true legal cloud practice management systems for law in Australia, and we have many thousands of users every day in Australia, with some of the most innovative firms operating inside Australia. So we're so excited to be here. They're hosting this event, and we last ran this event about 5 or 6 months ago, back in May, just in the teeth of the COVID first wave, which was interesting at the time, and obviously for many of us it's continued to be very interesting and really with no end in sight. This is really our new normal, I suppose, and I hope you and your teams are doing well and are not only figuring out how to survive, but really also how to take advantage of the current climate and really thrive. Well, you know, after the slowdown, we saw as a business in April, May time, a bit of a slowdown in our business, but we've seen a lot of interest from firms really looking to leverage the cloud over the last few months and really simplify their practice infrastructure, but also enable a lot of collaboration between their teams as they kind of work remotely. And that's been a major part of one of the benefits of really utilizing cloud tools. And I suppose there was a bit of a cloud blocker, I think. A lot of organizations not thinking about moving to the cloud and leveraging technology like Actionstep, but it seems to be that barrier has been removed, which is really exciting. So let's dive in. I mean, our topics tonight is really focused on creating client value and really driving client experience and pricing innovation within your law firm. And we have three great speakers tonight who, in their own ways, have been disrupting and confronting change and different models of service within law, and I hope they can share some insights that are useful to you. We'll come to those guys in a moment, but we're going to talk about legal service delivery innovation in action. We're going to talk about pricing, particularly in these challenging times, and really trying to focus on that great client experience. So here's the plan. You should have, and I hope you have, received a bottle of wine after your registration. If you haven't already done so, you should open that wine right now and consider its exceptional flavors. You will have some tasting notes, I hope, in your package to help you. And your job this evening, amongst obviously participating, engaging in the evening, is to try and guess the grape and origin of the wine. And just for the record, the last time we did this in Australia, we did actually choose an Australian wine, which is surprising for a New Zealand-based company, but we did. You will see a wine poll pop up on your screen, and you can fill out that poll and really assess which wine you have in your hands, which will be exciting for you. So anyway, let's get started. We're going to do three speakers. They're going to have between 5 and 7 minutes each, TED Talk style, and I'll introduce those guys in a moment. And then once we've finished all three speakers, we will actually have a set of questions. We'll spend 5 or 10 minutes, you know, in a kind of forum. And if you want to lodge a question at any time, please put it into the Zoom chat box, and I can then host the question sessions at the end of all three of those talks. And then at that point, we're going to take a breakout for 20 to 30 minutes and have a sort of networking discussion about both the speakers, but also some of the other kind of themes that we're all wrestling with within law. And then we'll come back together and we'll round out, and then I will tell you how you all voted for the wine, and I'll tell you where the wine actually came from. So I hope that sounds good. So without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker tonight. John Manning, thanks for coming and joining us tonight, is the founder and chief expert of Pricing Profits. Many of you may know him. Pricing Profits are a B2B and B2C international pricing expert, organization with a track record of price, revenue, and profit optimization. And I know, John, you have many relationships and clients across Australia. And John will be talking to us value-based pricing and other pricing strategies for law firms. So John, please, on you go.
Lovely. Thank you, David. Everyone can hear me okay?
Yes, great stuff.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. 5 to 7 minutes talking about pricing. That is the biggest challenge of my life, I think. I might start with a little story from a forthcoming book that I'm writing about a management consultant called Phil. And Phil rang me up one day and he wanted to have a chat about pricing. And he had this great calculator. In fact, it's so great, I've actually kept a copy of it here. And it helps him work out what his hourly rate should be. And it's got fantastic things on it, like what's your office cleaning expenses and what's your graphic design expenses. And we had a bit of a laugh at it because it was a budgeting tool. It wasn't a pricing model. He wasn't attracting the right customers that he wanted to work with, and every client he was talking to was asking him to do more and more work. We sat down at my dining room table one day with a big sheet of A3 paper, and we created 3 plans for him: small, medium, and large, or good, better, best. And fleshed them out, what was in each of those plans and what the price was, and so on and so forth. I didn't hear from Phil for a while, and I bumped into his wife a couple of weeks later, and I said, "How's he going?" And he says, "Oh, he's never been busier." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yeah, those packages had an immediate effect. They immediately were attractive to upmarket clients that he was wanting to work with. His clients knew exactly what he was doing, and he knew exactly what he was doing as well, and when to say yes and when to say no to customers. But most importantly, his revenue and profitability increased." I don't know who it was, but somebody probably smarter than me once described time-based pricing as cost plus pricing in drag. It's a pretty suboptimal method of setting prices in the best of times, and in the worst of times like we're in right now, it's utterly useless. Before I sort of expand on that, I'll give you another example that I came across recently of a US-based accounting firm. You can look these up. They're called Summit CPA. It's a US-based accounting firm in Fort Wayne, Indiana. In 2004, they had $600,000 in revenue. In this year, it looks like hitting $7 million in revenue. How's it done that? It's packaged up its services again. So it has a transactional product from $750 a week. It has a controller product for $1,000 a week and a virtual CFO service from $1,500 a week. But the really interesting thing is that those prices might be per week and time-based, but they're actually dynamic and they vary according to the amount of work they have going on at any one time. So what's so good about service plans or subscriptions? Here's just a couple of reasons. They smooth out lumpy revenue streams, which benefits the customer and the service provider. They're customer friendly. The customer will pick up the phone because they know that they're not going to get billed in 6-minute blocks. And they also increase the valuation of a practice. Your valuation of a practice can actually be associated with the percentage of turnover that you have on recurring revenue. And they give customers more certainty, and you can charge a premium for that certainty. And certainty is something customers really appreciate in this sort of economic climate. What sort of climate are we dealing with at the moment? Well, here's some numbers from earlier on in the COVID pandemic for Australia. 50% of Australian businesses have had to make changes to their workforce. And that's mainly a reduction in the hours staff have worked and also letting go of staff. 38% of Australian businesses are changing their method of delivery. For services, that's less critical, but there's an absence of face-to-face meetings these days. So a lot of Zoom meetings and Teams meetings and things like that. The same number, 38% of Australian businesses have or are in the process of renegotiating property rentals and lease agreements. And in fact, banking honeymoons from lease payments and mortgages and so forth finished up a week or so ago. And 29% of Australian businesses are reporting difficulty sourcing raw materials, and a further 24% of businesses have deferred mortgage repayments and loan repayments. Now, they may not be your businesses, but they're certainly probably your customers' businesses. But on the positive side, West Australia, the economic activity over there is back to pre-COVID levels. Metropolitan Melbourne, we're in a really strict lockdown and we can't move anywhere further than 5 kilometres from home. And one of the most likely consequences of all this is that there is a reduced willingness and ability for customers to pay for a lot of products and services. I do a lot of work in accounting with accountants and so forth, and only 17% of accountants are using a service plan or a subscription plan, and 43% of accountants continue to bill for time, with the balance billing on either projects or a mixture of service plan and projects. I guess before I came on our call, I did a bit of research with some friends in both the legal industry and the legal tech industry, and I sort of said to them, you know, what's doing the heads in of the people in the legal industry and the legal tech industry at the moment? And interestingly, both said to me, people are sick of hearing about value-based pricing. But I think what the challenge is, the conversation needs to change, and it needs to move on from what is value-based pricing to actually how to transition or implement it, because that is where the majority of businesses struggle with the execution of new pricing strategies. The transition is not easy. In fact, it's extremely difficult, but it's not just the professional services industries that struggle with that transition. If you have a look at the annual report and the investor presentation from seek.com that they released a couple of weeks ago, you would have seen a full page in the investor presentation devoted to the introduction of their new pricing model. And that is an exercise that's been underway for coming up to 2 years now, and it's championed by the CEO, Paul Bassett. So in sum, pricing is hard work, and the devil is actually in the execution rather than the description of the model. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Thanks, John. Very interesting. I'm sure there will be some more questions about how to make that transition and some of the steps that you might take to develop that pricing model, but let's we'll maybe come back to those. Now, Chris, can you hear me? How are you fixed now?
Yep, I can hear you, David, if you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Okay, Chris, I introduced you. Why don't you crack on, and let's hope your connection holds together there.
Okay, you can try the video now if you want to give it a go.
I think maybe just try your voice only.
All right, no worries.
You're still sounding a bit crackly.
Yeah, well, I think I've got a better connection. I'm on a hotspot at the moment up in Hamilton Island, so it comes with its benefits, but also with some issues and problems as well. I managed to get hold of hear John's presentation then, which is very good. Thank you, John. So I thought today what I would go through would be our experience as a law firm, where we were, say, 8 years ago until to where we are today. So about 8 or 9 years ago, we decided to get involved in Bytherules, and moved up to beautiful Noosa, and got to work with Bytherules. At that time, it was run by my colleague and founder, Joe McMahon, and he'd been running a firm in probably a fairly small firm, to be fair, had about half a dozen staff, and I thought at the time what we'd like to do is to become a much bigger firm, at least go statewide, and if possible go to being a national firm. So we set about doing that, and we had a bit of a plan. It's as I'm talking today, you're going to hear that we did a lot of pivots, a lot of changes, we made a lot of mistakes, so we learned a lot of things, but at the end of the day we got to where we wanted to be. Hopefully by sharing that with the attendees today, they'll get to learn something as well and not go through all that pain. Anyway, so we did a lot of pivots. We were using a piece of software at the time which is very popular today, but at that time it wasn't really cloud-based, and we'd made a decision, if we wanted to grow, that we weren't going to go out and hire lots and lots of offices all around Queensland and New South Wales and Victoria. We wanted to do it as, you know, cost effectively, i.e. cheaply, as possible. And to do that, we came up with this work from home model, which was new to Queensland at the time. There's a lot of firms doing it now, but at that time, I don't think anybody else was doing it. And we had a long conversation with the QLS about being able to do that. And Joe McMahon, God bless him, was able to convince him that was a good thing for us to do. And so we started down that path. And we thought at that time that we would grow the business by incentivizing conveyancers, if you like, to do lots and lots of matters and giving them financial rewards at the end of the month for doing so. That didn't work. It caused a lot of problems, a lot of pain for us. And we knew we had to change something. So we tried something else. We tried giving less bonuses, bigger wages, and that worked a bit better. And in the end, we kind of discovered almost by accident, because people like Carl White weren't around at the time, so we weren't able to pick up the phone and speak to him, that client service was the thing that was going to make a difference. In our industry, client service at that time, I don't believe was as good as it could have been. And we'd fallen into the trap of not providing the greatest client service possible. So we started to focus on it. And then back in 2014-15, we made a switch from the existing platform we were running on to Actionstep. Apart from it being cloud-based, one of the biggest benefits to us with Actionstep was that it was, we could make a prescriptive workflow and get our staff, our conveyancers, our paralegals, our lawyers and admin staff all working in a consistent manner. And once we got that working, we were able to really fire up and get the numbers going. So that worked for a while, and then we decided back in 2016 we were going to look at franchising. Well, if you think that getting the QLS to agree to conveyancers working from home was hard, trying to get them to agree to allow us to franchise was almost impossible. But we got through that, and we built a franchising system, and we launched that in 2017. Once again, we were able to do that because we had a cloud-based system based on Actionstep, and we had all the workflows in place. We worked with a company called WorkCloud Solutions, who helped us build a great solution. And we've been using that ever since. And that's allowed us now to tweak and improve things all the time, and consistently focus on client experience. And client experience for us is very, very important. When we started this particular journey, we were probably getting 65 to 70% of our business through from the internet and online searches, which is what everyone else was trying to do at the time. And we were just bidding on price. That's all you can do at that stage. And we decided at the time that we were going to build our referral base. And now our referral base accounts for over 90% of our business. We don't have to fight on price all the time. In fact, we don't fight on price at all. Going back to John's message, we're just focused now on providing a quality service, and pricing doesn't really come into it. We also started implementing something called the Net Promoter Score at that time, which was something I'd used in my previous firm in Sydney. But now with the cloud and everything else, we were able to do a lot of automation of our client satisfaction metrics. And NPS is a pretty easy one to understand. You either got a promoter, a detractor, or a neutral person, and it gives you a score of 0 to 100. And when we started, our NPS score was around the 65, 70 mark, which in many industries that's pretty good, but in our industry we wanted it to be higher. So we continuously worked on that by improving our client experience over the years, and now we're consistently over 90. We've been as high as 98 quite a few times. No one will ever get to 100 because there's always somebody who's not going to be happy with everything that you do. But 98 is almost perfect. Over 90 is, I think, is a benchmark in the industry. And when we're doing literally hundreds of these surveys every week, I think it sends a good message out to our clients. So the focus on client experience has been a very, very big one for us. As I say now, more than 90% of our referrals, when we have a happy client, they feed that back to our agents, they feed that back to our finance brokers, they get good vibes, they want to work with us. The fact that our franchisees now are working with our clients and our agents and our brokers directly is a big thing for them as well. In terms of pricing, we never want to be the cheapest. We won't be a boutique firm, so we'll never be the most expensive, but we never want to win on price. So we always want to win on quality of service. And I guess my message really is that there's going to be some people listening to this today that may be where we were a few years ago. And, you know, there is a path to success if you do want to focus on client experience and make it the focus of your business, because if you focus on that, your numbers are automatically going to go higher, you're going to do better, and you're going to have a much happier lifestyle. And some of the stress that goes with this industry will kind of disappear. So that's my message to everybody. I hope it helps.
Thanks. What a great story and an amazing journey. I think in my intro to you, you go from 6 members of the team up to a couple of hundred now. Is that right?
We're approaching about 100 in the organization now.
Awesome. Great story. Okay. Thank you, Chris. Let's move on to Carl, who wasn't around, sadly, when Chris was getting all this together. That sounds exciting for you, Carl. Carl is the Chief Experience Officer at CXINLAW, who specialize in client and customer experience development in the legal sector. I think, Carl, you and Chris do know each other. And Carl will be raising some challenging themes in relation to client experience and how we can all do that better. Carl, over to you.
Yeah, great, thanks. Can you all see my slides?
Yeah, we got them.
Yeah, cool. I'm going to give some slides a whirl, but I have got my 7-minute timer on, which is ironic because I'm not actually billing in increments of seven minutes. Just harking back to John. Look, my starting point for this is that, you know, client experience is any moment where an impression of service is perceived by its customers or its clients. You know, many of you are going to be familiar with some of the pictures there on the slide, whether it be an Amazon delivery, an Apple store, your local cafe, or even, you know, your patient experience. My argument really is that we've never been as attuned as we are today to our experience of service. And even if you have, you know, very sophisticated legal clients, you know, all of your clients are customers just like you. And we all understand what good service looks like and feels like. We also, you know, understand the opposite. But, you know, we know what good looks like and sounds like and feels like, importantly, and we want more of that. And the interesting thing is that, you know, today you're no longer comparing a law firm necessarily with another law firm. You're comparing a law firm, your service, and you're just one of many service providers on the high street with the best service providers out there. So it's actually more than likely that a client of yours is comparing your law firm and your legal service with the Domino's pizza tracker. Because basically, if I can track my pizza for $15 and understand exactly when it's going to arrive at my door, and I'm spending $1,500 with you or $15,000 with your law firm, and I have no idea where my legal matter is at, then I'm going to be comparing those two things, right? So this broadening of service expectations, this broader service world, those expectations are being brought to law. And so what are the implications? Well, you know, this is one firm that we work with. This is Moores in Melbourne. You know, every law firm says some really good things about themselves. But essentially, no one is saying there are not enough lawyers to choose from. That is simply not the case. There are plenty of law firms. There are plenty of brilliant lawyers. So today, it's about, you know, how do you bring your service proposition to life? Do we look and sound as good as we actually are at every touch point with the client? And it's really interesting because if you even present a law firm's own service promise or, you know, descriptions from a law firm's own webpage to staff within a law firm, most law firms will not recognize their own service promise, their own service statement, their own description of what it is they say they do on the tin, which is remarkable when you think about it, because now, today in law, we have to look and sound as good as we actually are, and every single staff member needs to understand how to bring the service experience to life at each of those touch points or moments of truth. It's about how you bring your service performance to life. And in that way, your receptionist is your director of first impression if you have a firm large enough to have that kind of receptionist feature. You know, it is your legal assistant can be your sales A team, and the tone of your lawyer when they pick up the phone. So if I was a law firm, you know, White and Case might be one way of doing it. oh, good afternoon, White and Case, Carl White speaking, might be another way to do it. And we've even heard what in terms of the way a phone is picked up by a law firm. So how are we bringing the service experience to life at every touch point? And based on that, and this links very nicely with what Chris was saying, you know, your clients are going to respond in different ways. We've got detractor, passive, and promoter. Funny this, because more and more people are not recognizing the fonts there on the right-hand side. I think I'm showing my age. But, you know, your clients are going to behave in certain ways depending on how you bring that service experience to life. And they'll act upon that as well. Interestingly, what we now have to do in law is orientate every single staff member, every single legal department toward creating promoters out of their clients. It's no longer the case that we can just do the law. Doing just the law is no longer good enough. Just aiming for customer satisfaction or client satisfaction is no longer good enough. If you're just aiming for satisfaction, your firm is already going backwards. No, you have to aim for client delight. I know that's not a piece of cake in law, and turn clients into promoters. And you may be surprised at how much of a motivational goal that can be for every single role and function if you do this right. And of course, good things happen if you're able to pull it off, as Chris was talking about earlier. Now that can be measured on a scale out of 10, and obviously we're going for a 10 where possible. But again, how do we bring that to life across the entire client's journey? There's so much gold on this slide, I'm not really sure where to start, but here are all of the touch points. You'll recognize some of them, won't you? That your clients experience, the on-stage experience of your clients with you, beyond just the doing of law, the legal result. What's the service reality? How are they experiencing all of these moments with you? All of those things will add up, or they will subtract. It will turn clients into promoters, or it will turn clients into detractors. And you may be surprised at just how often you're making your clients go, ouch, and you're not even realizing it. And you may also be surprised at the moments there are that exist in this client journey here, where you can surprise and delight. And even if all you're doing is doing the service basics consistently well, doing the service basics consistently well can be a law firm's biggest differentiator. We don't necessarily need the world's best technology. We don't necessarily need the world's biggest breakthrough innovation. Service basics done consistently well throughout this journey are a winner. And it's so often overlooked by law firms. So few law firms get all of these basics right, that it can be your biggest differentiator. I love what Walt Disney says here. We must keep on plussing the show. What a wonderful phrase, plussing the show. This is about finding those marginal gains, those opportunities to consistently improve, not just those kind of breakthrough technologies or breakthrough moments where, you know, we can truly innovate, but just elevating, uplifting the client's journey. Keep on plussing the show. It's not a set and forget. You know, law firms love to set and forget. Yes, we did customer service. We did a customer service training session 15 years ago. So we've ticked that off our list now. That's done. That can't be the case in today's service world. So as we move toward the end of my little talk, I just thought I'd get your mind working a little bit and your creative mind working. So, you know, by way of a little bit of a design sprint, you know, here's an MRI scan. And this is a real design study from the US. And the question here is, how can we reduce the anxiety and the fear that a child may feel when faced with having to undertake this kind of procedure, be rolled into this MRI scan? Okay, so how might we actually improve this experience? Well, I'm sure your mind is already working, because you could alter the way this looks. You could alter the environment. You could alter the way in which the child interacts with the medical staff, couldn't you? But what they did was this. Look at this. Isn't it amazing? They reimagined the entire experience. They created almost a choose your own adventure approach to this. The medical results improved, in fact, from changing the environment, changing the experience, lessening the anxiety. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that, you know, your client's legal journey needs to become a kind of a theme park in this way. But you can see where I'm going with this. The opportunity to find those service opportunities to improve will really add up for your business. And if you include your teams and include your staff in that conversation, in that business-orientated conversation, and collaborate with them, then really good things do actually happen. So here, when they reimagine this journey, yes, it's about the environment, but it's also about the people. It's about the nurse putting a pirate's hat on the child when the child first arrives at the hospital, to kind of almost invite them into the journey, invite them into the adventure. So again, all of your roles and functions within your firm, we're all games makers in bringing that service experience to life. We all have a role to play. Really importantly though, it's about adopting the client's perspective to unlock those improvements. Frankly, your client's opinion matters more than yours. It's the client's perspective that you need to adopt. So, actively seeking feedback in the way that Chris has described is really important. As much as it is about working with your team, it's about your employee's perspective as well as the client's perspective, and bringing those two things together. Because you cannot have a remarkable service experience unless you're at least working on your employee and your team experience as well, because those two things go hand in hand. So as I've said, games makers. Anyone, frankly, can do the law. I don't mean to offend anyone here, but most people, you can train to be a lawyer. We're all good at the law, in the law, mainly. Complaints don't come from doing the law wrong. They come from doing service wrong. And, service is all about the things I've spoken about, but at the heart of it is your service culture. It's very hard for another organization to build and replicate your service culture. It's reasonably easy for another law firm to replicate your legal expertise, but not so much your service culture. So that's where the focus needs to be. Not a piece of cake, but certainly doable. And as Chris says, there's a pathway to success there. And if you can achieve some of that success, you're going to see a very profitable service culture develop, and a very profitable law firm. So today, I think it's about care beyond the legal advice. You're almost in hospitality as much as you're in law. And it's about orientating everyone in your firm toward making clients promoters. It is doable, and the results can be fantastic. So that's my little 11-minute talk.
Oh, thank you. That was really inspiring. So, three interesting messages there. The service of value-based pricing and the transition to it, really reinventing your business model as Chris has done, and really focusing on customers there. And Carl, really interesting to think about those marginal gains in that service culture within the organization. Really, really powerful stuff. So I've got a few questions that have been logged here for you guys. Let's start off. I'll just start at the top. One from Vin. Chris, do you have a fixed fee, or do you have various packages that you've kind of settled on?
Hey, Vin. Yeah, we have, all packaged, but they're fixed fees. So we're, as John said earlier on, we don't charge by the hour. Clients don't like that. They just want to know upfront what it's going to cost them. So it's all fixed fee.
Right. And how did you get to that? Was it trial and error getting to that price, or did you have some really good data that you developed to get there? How did you settle there, or does it continuously change?
No, it hasn't changed in 8 years. So,
wow.
I'm pretty happy that, we've got a lot of people charging half of what we charge, because they have to compete on price and not competing on the client experience. So, no, we haven't changed it for 8 or 9 years. We determined at the very beginning that was a fair price, the profitability we needed as a business, and we stuck with it.
Nice. And John, a question here. I'm getting a lot of pressure from clients to reduce my rates. I don't want to lose them as clients. How do I talk to them about value and delivering that value rather than price? Is there, how do we kind of change the dynamic of the conversation?
Well, look, I think the easiest thing to do there is to offer the customer a number of choices, and vary the features within, or the services within each of those choices. So it's, I actually just loved what Carl said before about the pizza. Is it a small pizza, a medium pizza, or a large pizza, and what are the toppings on top and so forth? So just scope out 3 options, and and put those options in front of the customers, and then that you remove that haggling and negotiation by saying, well, if you don't want the medium pizza, then maybe the small pizza is for you, but it's going to be there's a trade-off in the the size, the ingredients, and things like that.
And Carl, I thought I had this is one from me really around those marginal gains. How do firms that you've seen be successful go about kind of change that culture? Is it a champion? Is it top down? How does that kind of culture change that you describe?
It's a really great question, David. I mean, ultimately, you are looking for the leadership team or the managing director to endorse this, right? So that they've made an investment and that they're taking that investment seriously. But the magic really happens when they kind of push a little bit of the responsibility down into the teams, and the teams take ownership. So the champion role has been one of the absolute keys to success, identifying almost the green dots within the organization, whether it be large or small, who can't think of anything better but to get a hold of this as an opportunity, because they want to work on the business. You'd be surprised, I think, at how many team members almost feel like business owners if they're given that opportunity. And so kind of divesting some of that responsibility, which also helps the executive team not to feel like they've got to do everything, down into the teams, and creating like that kind of structured development opportunity for people to be involved. That champion role, being a part of that is really important. And then literally kind of just letting team members actually discuss, what are we trying to deliver here, and how well are we doing that? Let's have that open discussion. What have you been wanting to actually improve, but haven't had the chance to do that? So once team members actually understand that, look, this is actually about us and our sanity and our effectiveness in our role, getting the job done easier, faster, better, as much as it is about the client, then you really get, kind of quite powerful motivators happening around the firm. Yeah.
Great. Thanks. I've got a couple more questions here. In fact, a few questions coming through here. Let me try this one. This one's, it was for Carl, but you got a lot of questions here. There was one question I read just earlier, Chris. Just let me gather my thoughts here. Did you encourage referrals with your customers? Were there financial mechanisms or other means that you tried to create a referral beyond just delighting your customers?
I mean, first of all, it's not ethical in our industry to do that, although some people actually do that. We've never financially incentivized anybody to refer business to us. We always believe that if they're really looking after their client's best interests and they want to have advise them impartially, whether then they can ask them to call us, invite us to talk to them. And most of the time, agents will refer 2 or 3 different firms to a client, and we like it that way. We want to win it based on merits of the level of business we do and things like that. So no, we've never financially incentivized anybody ever to give us business.
John, this one's for you. Thanks, Chris. How do you create a price with a value-based approach when the service is hard to prove a fixed price, like a litigation file that has many variables in it? How do you get to that service-based pricing in those circumstances? Tough one. You're frozen. It was too hard. John's brains exploded there. We'll come back to that question. Ilya, good question from you here. Question for Carl. Sorry, John, we lost you there. Sorry. Are you there?
I'm back.
Did you get my question?
No, I got the first half of it. So if you can start from the start again.
It's really how to make a service-based price when you've got a very complex legal matter, such as a litigation file where there are lots of variables.
Probably itemization. Chunk it up and itemize it, and people understand that you can't always, it's like forecasting. The further out you look, the harder it is to predict what's going to happen, and to a certain extent that's you could have the same situation with pricing, but I would take an itemized approach, and I'd also probably drop in sort of a mid-period review where you've got the opportunity to say, look, we're on track, or, you know, going back to the pizza analogy, the pizza's 15 minutes away, it's halfway through the journey, but there's another half of the journey to go, and this is what it's going to cost. So price what you can price for, and, you know, review halfway through, or when facts become clearer to give a better indication of the second half of the pricing.
Right. Got a question here, Carl, for you from Frank. Carl, what are the worst aspects of service failure by a firm in your experience, and what are the best? What have you seen? Some more stories here.
Oh my gosh. There's actually an origin story behind CXINLAW. When I personally used a law firm in the UK, and I've been using them for 7 years, and I decided to give them a little bit of feedback, and I wasn't comfortable going to the partner I was using. So I called the firm up and I said, hey, it's Carl, I'm a client, and I'd love to give some feedback if I can. And the receptionist on the phone, there was an audible sound of confusion on the phone. Like, and a comment was, we don't have anyone here who deals with feedback, but we do have a partner who deals with complaints, which I just thought was a fantastic line. And because there's a big difference between a complaints partner, you know, and fantastic service. Anyway, so I tried to get in touch with the complaints partner, and you'll guess what happened. I wasn't able to over a 2-day period. So I escalated the issue at that point, as customers now do. That's the point. As customers do, we take action, right? So I escalated this. I emailed the managing partner and said, hello, I'm a client. You know, I wasn't being a service terrorist. I was trying to be nice. And 24 hours later, I received an email in error, get this, from the managing partner, en route to who do you think? Via me, by mistake, en route to the partner who deals with complaints. And I'll never forget the line in there, which was, should we take this client seriously? Now, what would you have done under that circumstance, right? Both as a client and as an operator, yeah? How much does that speak to the service culture of this law firm? How much does it speak to all those other elements that are really crucial to, you know, a modern service-focused organization, you know, feedback and so on. So that's just one example. You know, a lot of law firms fail the first impression test. We do a lot of mystery shopping of law firms. We have a team who do that. We've been quoted all the hourly rates of all lawyers by the receptionist before being permitted to speak to any lawyer. I mean, that's a very unsophisticated way of, you know, being a gatekeeper. Obviously we see law firms that don't keep clients in touch with their matter throughout. We see law firms that just bill their clients, just, you know, stick an invoice in a bill, but there's no niceties around that. There's no concierge in the client. So those are all the kind of, some of the downsides. And isn't it nice when the opposite is the case? You know, isn't it nice when you have a genuine first conversation with a legal person within a firm, where the attitude isn't, I'm going to tell you as least as I possibly can. You know, I'm going to be as unforthcoming as possible in that first conversation. Whereas, you know, I'm actually going to be helpful, you know, and how that actually, you know, what that does in terms of the tone of the conversation and your inclination to go forward. It's a genuine empathy-filled conversation. When that happens, it's a real plus. And I could go on with the plus things as well.
Oh, that's great. Some good war stories there. And Chris, one last question before we finish up here to you. In your client journey, and I, over my career, these moments of truth for customers, if that's a real thing. I mean, can you identify some moments of truth in your client journeys?
In what respect, David?
Well,
some pivotal moments, you mean? Yeah,
there's pivotal moments in the customer journey that you really focus on nailing, and if you nail them, you know you've delivered a great service.
Well, I suppose there's not one particular incident, but realizing we have management meetings every Tuesday, and a large part of us taken up, we're talking about issues regarding client service. If we've had any specific complaints, you know, what that complaint is, how we deal with it. We moved, as I mentioned in my talk earlier, we moved from a rewards-based system, a financial rewards-based system, to more focus on the client satisfaction aspect of things. And amazingly, it made a massive difference. When you took away financial reward for people to do a good job and recognize them for doing that good job, it's amazing how people reacted and how they stepped up and started to provide a great service. And that, for me, that was a pivotal moment, understanding that people don't always work on financial rewards-based incentives. Sometimes you just need to get mind share. They need to have ownership of the problems of the client. They want to rejoice with the success of the client, be happy when they move into a new property. All those kind of things mean so much to people. And by taking away the financial incentives, we were able to increase their base pays anyway, because it left more for the people to earn. And I think people, it's hard for me to say exactly what it was, but I think that was a big pivotal moment for us. And it didn't happen over a 1 day or 2 day period. It really happened over a period of 6 months, maybe.
Nice, good story. Okay, so thanks guys, great stuff, some really good questions, and there are a few more here that we'll store up and we'll share with the parties and see if we can get some answers. So what I'd love to do now, and I think, Sammy, let's do a 20-minute breakout rather than 30. We've kind of run a little bit over at this stage. So do you want to break us into our rooms? And you will each have an action step leader in your room with you to help facilitate the conversation if you're all a bit stuck. Okay. All right, guys, welcome back. I hope you guys all had engaging and interactive sessions. We've managed to keep a really great participation level through the session. We had a very fun and engaging conversation in our breakout. Okay, so we're pretty much done, although I'm sure you're all excited about the poll and who achieved success in guessing the wine. If you've had it now, there were 2 or 3 members of our breakout room who actually weren't either at home or just got home, hadn't managed to have their wine. So I'm sorry about that. How do I find the wine poll? I can't see it there on my screen. Sammy, I'm sorry.
Just come up on my screen, but there is a polls button at the bottom of the bar.
Okay, all right. I can't see it. Turner, do you want to run through the story there, if you can, or maybe tell us what the poll resulted, and I can then tell the team what grape it was and where it was from.
I'm not actually seeing the results. I could just see the poll itself, David. So yeah.
But at the moment, people are still voting on the poll.
Oh, there are. Okay, well, if you can just find. Oh, the poll just popped up. Sorry. Anyway, if you can put your wine glass down and vote, that would be great. I hope it was an engaging evening and fun. Thanks very much for coming along. I don't know how quickly do you think we can get the poll up, Sammy? I don't want to get in the way of people's evenings. Great.
We've got about 30% of people that have voted so far, so maybe just another couple of seconds or so.
Cool. Yeah, and thank you very much to Chris, Carl, and John. It sort of built up there really nicely and actually hung together really nicely for me. Anyway, I would say that being part of the organising committee. But I really appreciate you guys' time and thoughts tonight. It was great to hear them. And actually, what became clear in our session really was, how pricing and client satisfaction and client engagement is just part of how you think. A lot. We had 2 members of our breakout that were starting up their own practices, and they've got great opportunities to begin business models right from the get-go. Reinventing your business model is obviously very hard, as John was saying, but really cool. Okay, let's maybe just shut the poll, Sammy, and we can pull it together.
So I'm sharing that now, David. Perhaps it's just popped up on a window behind the Zoom screen. Triona, can you see that poll pop up?
Yep, I can see it now. Yep. Will I have a little chat through it?
Yeah, do
So,
it.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what was the grape variety? So the forerunners were Cabernet Sauvignon and Shiraz, but the winner is Pinot Noir. The flavors that you guys voted on, 53% of you thought it was dark fruit flavors, hints of pepper and a fresh blueberry finish. Color of the wine, 37% said deep purple. The next best guess was deep ruby, and deep purple was correct. And then what is the country of origin? Well, we'll see. David's going to talk us through that, I think. The country of origin, that's going to be the reveal. What are the aromas of the wine? 40% of you are saying dark cherries, black pepper and vanilla. And the next best guess is 30% spice, blueberry, blackberry, and ripe tannins. So, David, I think you have the results in front of you.
Yeah, so Trina, the winner in terms of the grape variety, did I get you correct there, was Pinot Noir? Is that correct?
That got the highest votes, yeah.
Wow, okay. Well, it was actually a Shiraz, the wine, which really surprises me.
Okay, that was second guess.
Right. And the country of origin, what was the winner there?
Everybody thought it was New Zealand.
Yes, they were correct on that one. So yeah, ripe plum fruit flavor Shiraz with blueberry, blackberry, and ripe tannins. It was a I can't actually remember the name of the guy. I didn't manage to copy that across. Bay of Stones Shiraz from New Zealand. So well done. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out there with us tonight. We will collate any further questions we've got here and we'll share them with the group. I really appreciate you joining, and we'll think about doing another one of these in the next 3 or 4 months. But thanks so much and have a great evening.
Thank you all.